Welcome to English Grammar and Writing Skills course of EduPorm EdTech. You are watching the video with Manisha Bedi and the topic for the video is rules for noun. Today we are going to talk about the rules for a noun. Okay? Let's talk about the first rule. What does the first rule say? The first rule says that S is used. The first rule says that S is used. Hold on a second. S is used at the end of common noun. At the end of common noun to change them in their plural forms. Okay? So whenever you are trying to change the common noun into their plural forms, what do is you use S. Okay? So let's say for example, if I'm talking about boy, this is a common noun. Girl is a common noun. Crow is a common noun. Okay? So what do is we just add S at the end of these common nouns. Let's say for example, S, boy, and at the end of the common noun will be S, and then it becomes boys. Then comes girls. Then crows. Okay? So this is the first rule. Now let's talk about the second rule. Now what is the second rule? Okay, let's talk about the second rule. The second rule says that if a noun has CH in its end, okay, if you're talking about a noun and it ends with CH, okay, but its pronunciation sounds like K, we will use S at its end to change it in plural form. Now what does the sentence here says to you? The sentence says that if a noun has CH in its end but its pronunciation sounds like K, in that case we will use S at its end to change it in plural form. Let's say for example, if you are calling stomach, so the way you are pronouncing stomach, it seems like although this word has CH at its end, but when you pronounce this stomach, it sounds like stomach. Okay, it sounds like K. And what does the above sentence says to us is, if a noun has CH at its end but its pronunciation sounds like K, we will use S at its end. Okay, so what will be the plural form of stomach? It will be stomachs. Got it? Or if we're talking about conch is of a shell. Okay, conch of a shell. Okay, so again conch, conch, you don't pronounce it conch, you pronounce it conch, C-O-N-K, conch. Okay, this CH is pronounced as K. So again in this case what you will do is you will use S at the end of conch to change the word into, to change this noun into its plural form. Okay, so I hope the rule number 2 is clear to you. I'm going to repeat it again in case you haven't understood it. So the second rule says that if a noun has CH in its end but its pronunciation sounds like K, we will use S at its end to change it into its plural form. Let's say for example, if you are talking about stomach, the stomach sounds like stomach, S-T-O-M-A-K. Okay, so the use of S will be done in the end of stomach and it will become stomachs. Okay, again conch, that has a spelling of CONCH. Okay, it does have CH at its end, but it sounds like conch. Okay, you pronounce it in the form of conch. So it will be conch. Okay, you're going to do what you're going to do is you're going to make it sound like conch, although you are just going to add S in its original form. Got it? Now let's talk about the third rule. Okay, third rule. The third rule says that if a noun ends with Y, okay, if a noun ends with Y and Y has consonant, okay, then IES is used. IES is used against Y to change them in its plural form. To change them in its plural form. Now let's see, for example, like if I am talking about army, okay, so what will happen? Before Y you will see that there is a consonant here. So instead of Y you are going to replace it by using IES. It will be armies. Again, in another example, if let's talk about baby, it will be babies. Again, if you have like city, so it will be cities. Okay, then if you're talking about story, so it will be stories. Got it? So army, baby, city, story. In all of these cases, if you pay attention, you'll see that these are the nouns which does end with Y, but Y has the consonant added before. M, B, T, R, these all are the consonants. Okay, so what you will do is IES is used against Y to change them in its plural form. Okay, now let's talk about the fourth rule. Let's talk about the fourth rule. What does the fourth rule say? The fourth rule says that if a noun ends with Y, okay, if a noun ends with Y and Y has vowels, then S is used against Y, to change them in its plural form. Got it? So if a noun ends with Y and Y has vowels, then S is used against Y to change them in its plural form. Let's say, for example, if you are talking about toy or valley or monkey, okay, in all of these cases, if you watch out, then all of these nouns end with Y. Okay, and Y has the vowels before them. O is in vowel, E is a vowel. So in this case, what will happen? How you are going to change them in its plural form? You are just going to use S at the end of them. Okay, it will be toys, it will be valleys, it will be monkeys. Okay, S is used after Y. Sorry, it is not against Y, it is after Y. Means Y will be used. You won't have to replace Y as you did in the case of consonants. When Y had consonants, in that case what you did was you made use of IES against Y. In this case you have to include Y and you will have to add S at the end of Y. So toys, valleys, monkeys. Okay, now sorry, let's talk about the fifth rule. What does the fifth rule say? Okay, the fifth rule says that if a noun ends with O, okay, if a noun ends with O, then es is used. Es is used after O to change them in its plural form. Now let's say for example, when you are talking about, hold on just a second. Let's say for example, when you are talking about an example, okay, let's say for example, like what we said was, if a noun ends with O at the end, okay. Now let's see, if a noun has O at the end, like potato, mango, tomato, okay. Now if you see all of these words, then you will understand all of these nouns, then all of these noun ends with O at the end. All of these nouns have O at the end, okay. If you say hero, now in all of these nouns, what you would do is, if a noun ends with O, then es is used after O to change them in its plural form. So what will be the other form? The other form will be mangoes, mangoes, okay. Es will be used after O. Then potato, it will be potatoes, tomatoes, okay. Heroes. Got it? In all of these cases, you will see that all of these nouns do have an ending with O, and what you will do to change them in its plural form, you'll just have to add es at the end of all of these nouns, okay. Now let's go for the 6th rule. Okay, now the 6th rule says that if a noun ends with double O or IO or EO, okay, again YO. So if a noun ends with double O, IO, EO or YO and has a consonant before these two means before double O or before IO or before EO or before YO. In all of these cases, what you're going to do, let's talk about this with the help of an example. Let's say for example, if you are talking about bamboo, okay, if you are talking about studio, or you're talking about radio, actually I gave you the hint. In all of these cases, what you're going to do is you are going to use S to change them in its plural form. So in order to change these nouns which ends with double O or IO or EO or YO, in all of these cases, what you are going to do is you are just going to add S at the end of them. Okay, because if you see before double O, it's B, that is consonant form. Before IO, it's D. Before IO, it is D. Again, D is also present here. So all of these B, D, these all are the consonants. So what you need to do is you just need to add S at the end of these nouns. It will be bamboos, studios or radios. Okay, so these are the plural forms of these three nouns. Got it? Okay, I forgot to mention one exceptional case where in the 5th rule, where it said that if a noun ends with O, then you have to use ES. You just have to use ES, as we talked about in the case of mango or in the case of potato or tomato. Okay, but there is an exceptional case. Of words like photo or piano or kilo or weirdo. Okay, in all of these cases, what we said, we talked about these things in the 5th rule. We said that if any noun ends with the letter O, in all of these cases what you're going to do is you have to use es at the end of the letter O to change them in its plural form. But these are the exceptional cases. Here you won't use es, instead you are just going to add s. Okay, pianos, kilos, weirdos. So remember this and don't make these mistakes. Okay, if you write PHOTOES, it is going to be incorrect. Okay, so these are the exceptional cases where the nouns does have the ending of O, and if a noun has an ending with O, you are supposed to use es at the end of it. But in these cases, in these 4 cases, which is an exceptional case, here you are going to use simply s at the end of the letter O. Got it? Now let's continue talking about the 7th rule. Okay, now what does the 7th rule says? The 7th rule says that if a noun ends with f or fe, if a noun ends with f or fe, then the letter ves is used against them. Okay, now let's take some examples. Like if I'm talking about knife or I'm talking about theft, then you're talking about wife, half, okay, calf. This is really bad. Okay. Now see, if a noun ends with f or fe, okay, if a noun ends with f or fe, then ves is used against them. Let's say for example, if you're talking about knife, okay, so what is knife here? Knife will become knives. The noun has an ending with fe. So if a noun has an ending with fe or f, in all of these cases what we'll do is we are going to use ves instead of f or fe. Now knife will become knives, thief will become thieves, wife will become wives, half will become halves, it will become calves. Got it? CALVES. So in all of these cases, if you watch out, you will understand that all of these nouns either ends with f or fe. Okay, then you simply have to use ves in order to change them into its plural form. Got it? Now let's talk about the 8th rule. Okay, let's talk about the 8th rule. Now what does the 8th rule says? Again, let me talk about some of the exceptional cases while making use of f or fe. Okay, let's talk about some of the exceptional cases. We are going to continue the rule 7, where we already talked that the noun which ends with f or fe, the noun which which have an ending with f or fe, there what you're going to do is you are going to replace them with ves in order to change them its plural form. Okay, but again we do have some exceptional cases. And what are those exceptional cases? For example, when you're talking about chief, okay, when you're talking about chief, or belief, or let's say for example I'm talking about dwarf, okay, proof, Now in all of these cases, what you're going to do is, you will think that again these nouns do have an ending with F, okay, so you just have to use VES against them. But no, here the exceptional case says that in order to change them in its plural form, you just have to use S at the end of all of these nouns, okay. Other than these, there are some more examples. Let's say like for proof, staff, okay, proof or staff, or grief, okay, grief, safe. Now in all of these words, what you're going to do is, you just have to add S instead of excluding F and using VES, okay. Staffs, griefs, safes. Got it? Now let's talk about the eighth rule. Okay. Now there are some exceptions where changes between vowels leads to it plural form. Okay. Now there are some exceptions. Again, we are talking about some of the exception where what you do is, where changes between vowels lead to its plural form. Okay. Now let's say, for example, if you are talking about foot or tooth, okay, tooth, goose, mouse, then comes louse, sorry, got it, or man, woman, got it. Now there are several examples where what you have to do is, where you're just going to change, you're going to just make changes between the vowels, okay, changes between all of these vowels. Okay, got it? Sorry. Now let's make some of the changes. So let's do first, before making changes, let's read out the rule again. The rule says that there are some exceptions where if you are making changes between the vowels, it will lead to its plural form. Okay, so, let's say for example, foot becomes feet. Means when you're talking about one foot, then it's one. You're talking about more than one foot, then it becomes feet. Tooth means when you're talking about only one tooth. Okay, but when you're talking about 32, then you won't say 32 tooth, you will say 32 teeth. Okay. Goose will become geese, mouse will become mice, louse will become lice, man will become men, woman will become women. Got it? So these are the exceptional cases where you just have to make changes between the vowels in order to change them into its plural form. Got it? Now let's talk about the ninth rule. Let's talk about the ninth rule. What is the ninth rule? The ninth rule says that some nouns uses en in its plural form. Let's say for example, when you're talking about choose, or let's say for example child, okay, or ox. Now in all of these cases, what you have to do is, these nouns will just use en in order to change them into its plural form. So choose will become chosen, child will become children, ox will become oxen. Got it? So these are some of the nouns which just make use of en in its plural form. Now let's talk about the 10th rule. Okay, adjustable here. Material nouns. Okay, when you're talking about materialistic things, in that case, material noun cannot be counted. That is, you cannot count water. Okay, you cannot count water, you cannot count tea. These are material things. So material noun cannot be counted. Hence they have no plural form. Okay, as I said about some of the examples like gold, diamond, you cannot count them. You don't say diamonds, you cannot say golds. Okay, you do not say teas. Okay, teas, teas, do not say like this. Okay, so these are the material nouns, and these material nouns cannot be counted, hence they do not have any plural form. Okay, so if anyone asks you or gives you any like these type of questions or the questions like this, then you have to understand, you have to figure out that what would be the answer. Sometimes they can give you these exceptional questions, okay, where they will just want to check that how much you do know about it, know about nouns. Okay, now let's talk about the 11th rule. The 11th rule says that, but if we put s at the end of material noun, it will change in its whole meaning. Okay, so material noun cannot be counted, but if we are going to add s at the end of the material noun, what will happen? It is just going to change the whole meaning. Okay, but if you add s at the end of the material noun, at the end of the material noun, it will change its whole meaning. Okay, let's say for example, if you talk about sand or iron, okay, or force or way, okay, or good. Now sand, iron, force, way, good. If you add sands, it will be something else. If you say irons, it will be something else. Irons, she irons irons her clothes. Okay, or forces, force is another thing, forces is another thing. Okay, way is another thing, ways are another thing. Good means it is an adjective for a person. Let's say for a person or for anything like good health, good man, good woman, or good girl, good boy. Okay, but when you say goods, it becomes, you're talking about goods, you're talking about things. Okay, so whenever you add s at the end of material noun, it is just going to change the whole meaning. The meaning will be changed from one to another. Got it? Now in the next video we are going to talk about some uses of noun. Okay.